Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, chapter 943 of One Piece is out. So if you haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. So I was talking to some people about this chapter, and they implied to me that they felt as though when they were reading this, that this chapter was just, it seemed as though a continuation of the last chapter. It almost felt one and the same, like you could have almost erased a good part of this chapter, and we would essentially be in the same situation. The last chapter obviously being about Yasui's death, and it's like last chapter covered that. We already have this, we've already cried our tears, and we're ready to move on. But I think that if you read it from this perspective, you kind of missed really what this chapter was entirely about, and why it was so great. But outside of the first 2 pages of this chapter wasn't about Yasui's death. That has come and passed. There is obviously still reaction to it in the background from many of the characters, including most of the residents of Ebisu, but the chapter is about Ebisu, and it's about the effects of Smile. In my opinion, this is one of the great chapters of One Piece that really has a self-contained story. A chapter which builds upon itself to cultivate, the energy and the emotion. It begins with an introduction to the story and its premise, which essentially revolves around Smile Devil Fruits and their effects on the citizens of Ebisu. This including some exposition of how all of this works. We learn that Smile Devil Fruits have a 90% failure rate, and in the case that you hit that 90%, you are robbed of your ability to express anger and sadness. And only in those 10% cases do you find gifters or people who exhibit special abilities. Orochi, observing how destitute and desperate and sad the residents of Ebisu were already because of the conditions that they lived in, decided that it was a good idea to feed them these failed Smile Devil Fruits that had already been eaten as part of their leftovers, their daily allowance of food. And although these villagers realized almost immediately that they did not want to eat these fruits, they did not want to be cursed by its effect, they were essentially forced to because they were too hungry. Their stomachs won out. And they're left today unable to grieve, unable to even express sadness when somebody that they loved had died. But the real meat of the story, what Oda was trying to tell us during this chapter, actually occurred in the minds of the Strats, more specifically Sanji and Zoro, as they listened to each respective person that they were around explain what was going on. It's mainly internal, but it is there. They're building anger at how badly these people have been wronged. They're fighting with the situation and their orders that they aren't supposed to make themselves known. They aren't supposed to reveal their identities. They're supposed to stay low-key, and at the same time, they want to fight. They want to kick some butt. And so on Sanji's side of this conflict, you reach the point in which he learns that these residents essentially had their hunger used against them as a weapon. Of course that puts Sanji over the edge. Food is definitely not supposed to be used that way. And on Zoro's side, he'd gotten to know fairly well a person who acted with an extreme amount of honor. Somebody who, despite everything that was going wrong in his life, he tried his best to look on the bright side. And not just because he ate some kind of fruit that forced him to laugh. Zoro could not bear him being mocked in death. And this leads us to the Shogun and Otoko. Otoko, the daughter of Yasu, desperately trying to make him live, trying to give him whatever medicine that she had, still laughing uncontrollably. And this is about when everything that Oda had set up during this chapter finally tipped over, and Sanji and Zoro arrived to save the day. They acted on their building emotions despite the potential consequences. I really just thought that this chapter was beautiful. By far, in my opinion, the best chapter of Wano so far. The moment when Sanji and Zoro appeared at the end of this chapter, not only was it beautifully drawn, it was just so damn hype. Oda gave it some juice. On top of the fact that this was a pretty significant moment in terms of Wano so far, because if you guys remember, Sanji and Zoro have not interacted for over 200 chapters. Two of the very most popular characters in One Piece finally get their reunion, and Oda did it right. But now we need to continue these vibes and continue this energy for the next couple chapters. Guys, I'm gonna admit, I was so afraid after the last chapter. Part of me, it was part impatience, probably. Part of me was, you know, just sort of unsure about where Oda was going with the arc and how he would handle things. But after the last chapter, I wasn't entirely sure there would be major conflict at Yasui's, execution. There was no immediate gratification, immediate clarification, or confirmation that things would escalate from that point forward. And I just, we've heard it from everybody who's been hating on the Wano Kuni arc. Things have been taking too long. There's been a lot of buildup, but not a lot of payoff. And I think that we're about at the tipping point here where we need something just major to occur, not just a one-chapter fight between Sanji and Page One, not just a one-chapter fight between Luffy and Kaido, but something really significant that's going to have our eyeballs glued to the pages. And this chapter essentially confirmed that we will get that, but I'll admit, after the last chapter, I was sweating just a little bit. And I want you guys to know that this chapter has already completely changed the dynamics of the Wano arcs. It's already significant. Even if Zoro and Sanji at this point were just to save Otoko and then run away, that's probably not going to happen, by the way, because they're angry for a reason. They want to kick some butt, so that's going to happen most likely. But before any of that, they've already revealed their identities. Something that we've essentially been spending this entire arc trying to avoid. Now it is impossible. So I really do think that we are poised for a climactic end to Act 2, especially with, on the other hand, you have the prison and Big Mom is about to arrive. We assume something huge will be derived from that as well. But I think that my biggest question from all of this, just a general question about the direction of the arc, we have all assumed from the beginning that we will be getting to the Fire Festival. The Fire Festival that we spent this is an entire arc setting up and all the minutia of the details and the plans. Yasu even just revived the plans after they had failed once. If Big Mom appears and shows up and Kaido knows that she is within Wano and Zoro and Sanji make their presence known, he now knows for sure, if he didn't before, Luffy is here with the rest of his crew. They will be looking for them. How do we get to the Fire Festival? I still think that we're gonna get it. I mean, it almost seems like Oda would have wasted this arc if he didn't. So for that reason, I have to believe that we'll get there. But the question is, for now, how? I think that it is a legitimate question because I'm not sure how Oda is capable of toning down the energy from the point that we are at now. Aside from potentially all of the Straw Hats getting captured and or defeated. And even if you had the Straw Hats end up victorious, both here and in the prison, it seems like by itself, it would already undermine the plan and everything that Yasu did before he died. Because Kaido will be looking out for the Strats, he will be looking out for something happening, and obviously put things in place, new obstacles for the Strats to overcome. Sneak attack mission fail. But I'm not saying it's impossible for Oda to do these things, I'm just not sure how. I think it's kind of crazy to think that we're 30 chapters going on 40 chapters into the arc, and we're still not entirely sure how we're going to get from point A to point B. But I think that if Oda has made anything clear is that it will not be linear. But yeah, let's talk about some of the details of this chapter, some things that I observed that I just want to discuss that may or may not be relevant. And I want to actually start at the beginning of this chapter when we got to see the 9 red scabbards when they were much younger, and just some details which caught my curiosity. First off, for some reason, when Kinemon was younger, he had completely different colored hair. I'm not sure if that's like a gangster or a Yakuza thing to do. Maybe he bleached his hair. I'm not entirely sure, but I thought that was a weird choice from Oda. But I think that more significant, and guys, tell me if you see this or not, if I'm just alone on an island here, but Kiku kind of looks like Izo from the Whitebeard Pirates in this particular scene. Izo, remember, is a dude who cross-dresses. So I'm basically saying that Kiku, when she was younger, looked like a dude, which was kind of already a theory in the community. Now, I don't know if I fully believe this. I'm just saying that the way that she looked kind of reminded me of a dude, and that's already her portrayal. Maybe that's the way that she wanted to look, but to have makeup on at the same time seems kind of counterproductive. But I mean, if you want to take this crazy, you could get into some weird stuff where we already know that the Revolutionary Army has a connection with Wano, at least through Koshiro, Zoro's sensei. We know that Ivankov is part of the Revolutionary Army, and then Ivankov has the ability to change people's genders. Maybe you could make it possible for Kiku to have had a gender change, because she's clearly, at least it seems that way, she's clearly a woman now. I'm just going to stop while my head up. That's just what I noticed. What do you guys think? And so next I want to talk about Smile Devil Fruit. And so we kind of touched upon this in the last chapter when it was implied that Smile was the cause of Ebisu's inability to express sadness. And so I think the question still remains, how exactly does this work? Why exactly do failed smile devil fruits take away a person's ability to express certain emotions, sadness and anger? I'm at the point now where I'm not entirely sure, and usually I would bet on Oda, but this time I'm not entirely sure if there is an actual explanation for this, or if this is just a thing that we must accept as true without any sort of pseudoscience or shonen logic thrown behind it. Either way, if an explanation exists, I wouldn't know. I do not even have a single idea. At this point, to me, it seems random, and if Oda does have an explanation for this, I think that it would be incredibly cool and incredibly hype, a believable explanation. If that happens, then I will be over the moon. If it doesn't happen, which is what I'm going to assume is the case, then I'm just going to move on. And I think the other huge question that this chapter leaves us with, that I'm not going to theorize about in this video, I'm just going to bring it up, is we're assuming here that Orochi knows about the effects of smile. The 90% of failed smile devil fruits, Orochi knows what they do. So why is it that he was so mad at Otoko for laughing at him when he should know that she's a citizen, she's showing the effects of a resident of Ebisu, and therefore is not to blame, and there's no intent behind any of her reactions. She laughs at literally everything. She's constantly laughing. I've seen a lot of people point this out, and I also don't think that it makes sense on the surface. However, I do have a conspiracy theory about this, which we will make an entire video about. Needless to say, I do believe that this is a question that is deserving of a reasonable answer. And not just that Orochi was overcome with emotion and sort of lost his judgment in the moment. And no, I don't think that this is a plot hole either. But anyway, the last thing that I want to talk about before we end this video is the theory that a lot of people love and a lot of people really hate, and that is the idea that there will be friction and or drama between Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy, potentially culminating in Zoro leaving the crew. Temporarily. We've been waiting so long for Zoro to interact with Sanji, and it seems like those moments are soon to come. But I'm getting a lot of comments about this, and I don't think that people fully understand what it is that I expect to happen. A lot of people say, well, you know, in the next couple chapters, we will know an answer. What we are really waiting for is for Zoro to learn of the events in Whole Cake Island, or at least to have some sort of inclination that at some point he may learn of the events in Whole Cake Island. Because the things that we theorize that Zoro would not be okay with is the fact that they led Big Mom to Wano, and now they have to deal with 2 Yonko, and the fact that Sanji attacked Luffy, and still hasn't apologized to him. So in the next couple chapters, obviously there will be fighting, a lot of things will be going on. There's not going to be any conflict between Sanji and Zoro. What I do expect to see is potentially a reiteration that Zoro is not a fan of Sanji in the moment, just as we got at the end of this chapter as they glared at each other. Now this is something that is not new, right? That's how their character dynamic is, which makes it kind of confusing, but I'm hoping for some sort of hint that that Zoro's feelings are stronger, even if it's slightly, than it was before. Or maybe a line when this all resolves in which Zoro intimates to Sanji that he's not happy with his decision to go to Whole Cake Island, and not ask permission, not ask for help, and ultimately leave the Strats in need of him and force them to go and rescue him. When in reality, the Strats are in their time of need, facing off against multiple Yonko. They can't afford to have a Strat go off and handle their own personal matters. And certainly not of their own volition, having not asked the captain for permission, or even offered a real explanation. Right now, I would really settle for a hint that the story is just going in this direction. If we don't get that hint, yes, I will be concerned as to whether or not it'll come to pass or not. Obviously, it's a theory, a very divisive one at that. But what I really see happening is this all coming to a head the moment in which Zoro realizes that Big Mom is in Wano, hopefully after she has regained her memories and becomes an enemy once more. When the Strats truly are between 2 Yonko, that's when I see Zoro turning around and ask both Luffy and Sanji what the hell happened in Whole Cake Island. Then it could be explained to him how Sanji attacked Luffy, and as we've explained in all of these theories, Zoro should not be okay with that. But yeah, that's where I stand with the theory right now. I'm really just looking for a hint, and of course, I don't expect anything at all until the dust settles and the Strats have a moment to actually breathe and potentially talk to each other. But yeah, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and include a link in the description for that theory so that you can be in the know. But it is by far the most divisive theory in the community, therefore it is the juiciest and the most interesting. Strong opinions on either side. But yeah, guys, I am so glad that there is no break next week. There was 2 breaks in the past 3 weeks. That really got to me, not going to lie. And I'm really glad that we're going to have 3 or 4 chapters in a row in which we can really get into the meat of all these things that we see building up. And I can't wait to see how they all resolve and where it will go, and figure out exactly how we're going to get, to the future of this arc. But as always, share your thoughts in the comments section below. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.